Welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, November the 12th, 2025. Welcome, Michael and Susan, Andrea, and Anita, and Susan Bingham. Glad everybody's with us. Some more people will be popping in here in a second, but go for it, Michael.
Hey, welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're here. And I'm sitting with three young ladies. We just finished our first Quantum StillPoint session. Susan, anything to share about it?
1 second there. I guess I'm not to mute that for a second. It was actually amazing. Lots. I don't even have language for it. Before I went into it, I already had a revelation this morning, which was around the Course in Miracles, where the name of God is my inheritance. And the revelation was, it's beyond language, and it is who I am. That was very clear upon awakening. And that epiphany got to take that into the Quantum StillPoint session. And in that session, I could allow the love of Rukha, who is that, to align my physiology with that, and also my perceptual mind with that. And then Michael got to be the conduit as a masculine, who I trust and can feel the safety of that, just to allow that to be processed. Yeah, it was lovely. So just excited for what's to come. This journey here, lots of magic has been happening already, with lots of clues on the way here, and also clues arriving. It's been magical. So just deepest of gratitude. Thank you. And I got my hand in the Avicen right now. I'm sitting here as for my left hand. Yeah.
Two Avicen's rocking here. So we're just on go here. We had a very active morning of breathing, and another session right after the show with Andrea. It's going to be fun. Andrea we were talking this morning, and she's the first person that I have met that, without having done the still point breathing work with me, was able to describe still point process. So I'm excited to see what happens when we add the breathing to it. But Andrea had opened that space. So what would you like to share about that, young lady? Anything?
Share about which part
Just maybe a little bit about what your meditative practice was that led you to comprehending the still point. Because as I say, I've been 42, 43 years, I've never met anybody that can describe that process. And I've worked with people. I've had people who've done every kind of breathing I've ever heard of, people who worked with this and did this breathing and that. And I've never had anybody who has found or been able to key into the still point. Actually, you had Dan Brule, who's a breath worker, who created a still point title for one of his workshops. Yeah. Susan sent me some information. I communicated with him and pointed out that we had trademarked that term decades ago. So he was very kind and generous to say, oh, okay, well, I'll let go of that. I'll find another name to use. And we're actually meeting in December here in Bristol. He's coming.
Oh, I can't wait.
So we're going to spend some time together.
He's soul family, everybody. Dan Burrow's also soul family, part of the team.
So, but you're the first person including breath workers, that has ever been able to describe that process without having done it with me. So I'm excited about that, and whatever you
maybe want to give you
to share if you
describe it was for you.
So for me, it was a stumbling across, obviously a part of my soul path. I started to group meditate in 2018. That brought me to places that were the most beautiful spaces of energy. One was this vein, is what it looked like, or a river of green love. And it was pure love, bliss. And this was in a very small community of, 6 people that used to meditate together. And I had meditated since I was a teenager, but this brought it to a whole new level. And so I became driven by any opportunity to meditate. And it was spending by a year later, a minimum 5 hours a day meditating. And the way I understood what was happening, because when I would go into that deep space of meditation, I like how you're saying the super processor, I interpreted it as my higher self embodying. Because in that space, I was able to start asking questions and receiving answers. And the answers were things that I couldn't give language to in the English language at all, and really started to realize the limitations of the English language, because the information that I was receiving in those meditations were truths that no words have captured. And it was neutralizing my suffering, my conditioning, and the paradigms in which I carry and have been exposed to. And my frequency even became so loud in my ears, like in my head, that I struggled to sleep because it buzzed so loud, because those times where I was in that depth of meditation, and sometimes I timed the meditation, it would be, say an hour, and it felt like years. Like it felt like I traveled universes, like many universes. My scope of understanding was so beyond this earthly plane that I ended up feeling through those meditations that were happening daily and often throughout the day. I felt such a high vibration. I thought I was going to ascend out of my body. Like it didn't feel like I could, like with the way my frequency was just so high pitched and my body felt so light. Especially when I'd ride my bike or do anything that brought my breath more and more and my cardiovascular system up. I thought literally I'd be riding my bike going, I'm done here. Wow, I'm done here. Like, and I'm going to ascend out of my body. Obviously I didn't.
You were probably coming into your body.
Oh,
You were probably.
well, that's interesting. I thought I was leaving.
Ah,
Okay. Wow.
I didn't hear what Michael said. I didn't hear what he said.
that's exciting.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't have she's hearing me because we're sitting in the same room and I had my mute button on. But I was saying that I suspect she wasn't leaving her body, but rather she was coming into her body. She was incarnating. So that was
Feels true.
Yeah,
probably a
totally does.
little different.
You think you're gonna get to go home? Yeah, you get to go home. You get to be incarnated in the body here.
You get to come into the Garden
You
of
get to be
Eden.
in the Garden of Eden in the
Wow. Oh my
body.
gosh, I had no idea. Because
Oh,
I had a good friend have a conversation with me because I was telling him about it. And we were sitting at the fire and he said, Andrea, it feels like you have to make a decision between going off into the mountains like the monks
Yogis,
and the yogis, because I was not functioning for my children and stuff. Like I was, but I wasn't. I was in, there was some amount of fear. And he was saying, maybe you really need to think about these practices you're doing. And then my oldest daughter, who was 19 or 20 at the time, would cry in front of me and say, you're here, but you're not here. like I feel like you've left me. And so in that moment, I made the decision to reduce my practices so that my kids wouldn't feel abandoned.
It sounds like the component that was missing was working through what's held in carbon-based memory.
Michael, you'll have to unmute again. I muted you
Oh,
because
excuse
it
me.
was
I didn't realize
echoing.
you'd muted me, Jeanie. Okay.
Yeah, it echoes when both of you
So I
are
was
talking.
just feeding back to Andrea that the piece now that you're getting ready to do is going to be to clean out carbon-based memory of the generational traumas, your lifetime of traumas. Because if you come in and that hasn't been cleaned out, there's a whole other, you know, level of crazy that happens. So
That's
it's
why
going
it
to be
was
really
manifesting
interesting.
out.
I'm going to be very excited to see what happens.
Interesting, thank you.
Very cool. And do you have anything you'd like to share, young lady? No, you're good? Okay, cool. All right. So does that resonate anything for anyone? Susan, you've got your hand up. Go for it.
Oh, I didn't mean to put it up, but it's up. Okay. I'm in the basement hanging a wash. I must have pressed. Anyway, Andrea, I am in awe. I can't imagine being with yourself and doing that kind of meditation for that long. I'm such a fidgety person. I'm hoping that in the Hindu tradition they say there are different types of devotees. I am a Rajasic devotee, meaning I
Gotta
need
go and move, eh?
to move around.
That old Rajasic's always on go.
I know it, and to be able to be quiet and be with yourself, I'm just so impressed. So I'm sitting here being blown away,
Cool.
and I can hardly hear you, Michael. And I don't know whether it's me or I've got my volume all the way up.
Not sure. Is that better? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's just very low.
It's oh, okay.
I
I'm
can
not
hear
sure
you
why that is.
okay.
Okay, I don't
for you?
have my headset with me, and usually I've got a headset on with this phone when I do it. So I'll stay a little closer to the mic and keep my voice a little louder. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. The conversation is going where it's going. I do have a question, but it's totally unrelated. And since you're on retreat, this seems very rich. So I'll save the question unless everybody goes mute and doesn't want to talk.
Okay, well, Kerry's got her hand up, so let's see what she has to say, and
Oh,
we'll
good.
see how the space opens to come back around.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Hey, Miss Kerry.
Hi. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate what you were saying about Susan um, really coming more into her body during the breathwork session with you, because I had a similar experience. I don't know if it was exactly the same, but I
When we were doing
did.
the quantum still point, you're saying?
Yes, when I did the quantum still point, I remember. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt like there was like at first I interpreted it as me leaving my body, but it was not like that. It really was this boom, like it was intense and instantaneous, filling up my heart space, and there was all this tingling afterwards. And I didn't really have the words for it. I thought, oh, did I leave my body? But no. What I thought I said to you, I feel like I've come back into my body, but I don't remember leaving it. And you said, no, you didn't leave it. You've allowed more space for more of you to come into your body, is what you said, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole idea is to fully incarnate, and most people don't even come near their bodies because there's so much trauma in them. They just hang around in the periphery somewhere, don't really, as beings, enter their own forms. So
So
incarnation.
yeah, so the feeling since then, since that's has happened, uh, since I've allowed more of that opening is I feel an expansiveness of heart energy in just my day-to-day life, my day-to-day
That's
living.
awesome.
And I feel like I'm more present in everything
I,
that I do.
I've noticed a shift in your language toward Jim since that moment.
Yes. He is a beautiful being of light.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. And every morning when I wake up and he's sound asleep and he sleeps longer than me, and it's just an instantaneous outpouring of love and envelopment around him
Mm,
as he's
uh,
sleeping. Yeah.
what a gift
Yeah.
to give yourself and to give him.
Absolutely.
And I know exactly what that's like because I know that I get the blessing of looking at Jeanie and it just opens that space. It's
Yeah.
pretty sweet.
It is very sweet. And I just know that as the three of you go through this process, that, yeah, it's an intense, beautiful process. And the unfoldment afterwards is very sweet. And it's not subtle, and it's subtle. So it's not subtle in the sense that I notice it. I notice the
Right.
shift and the change. Yet it's not something that, a lot of people have noticed a difference or anything. In fact, Jim said he hasn't noticed a difference, but that's okay.
That's probably because Jim hasn't changed anything in his mind yet.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. The only
He's
time
on
the
his
world
path.
really generally changes is when we change this. So,
Yeah, and so it's just a beautiful unfoldment since when was I there? July, I think.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's still there. That presence is still there. It's not gone away. It's not this temporary thing. It's an integral part of my being that has been remembered and reactivated, I guess, is how I would put it. As I had allowed the space for that to manifest in within me. Yeah.
As you've chosen to incarnate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. It was interesting when Jeanie went through some of that process, she actually got a message that she was going to go through. And Jeanie, maybe you happen to have your notes handy and you could share a little bit about that, that you went through that incarnation process and that you were informed, you were given specific instructions of the fact that you would be doing this in 5 measures. And Julie Matthews is into music, and when she shared the 5 measures, that opened, the measures, the beats in music, and it was just a whole process that happened. Actually, I think we did a radio show or 2 around it, if anybody wants to look it up. But Jean, do you happen to have your notes with what those 5 measures were, and maybe share a little bit about it?
I'm pulling it up now. It's actually one of the chapters in my book.
Ah.
And so the chapter starts out and it says, in one of the most powerful breath sessions I've ever experienced, I received this message as clearly as if someone were standing in the room with me and announcing, "You will expand in 5 measures." Of course, I know that someone was God or Rukha, spirit. I had to look up word by word, what does this mean? And to expand in physics or according to the universe means to continuously undergo change, to become larger, to have a bigger view. In scripture, it says the kingdom of God, translated as the kingdom of expansion. A measure in music is a single unit of time with specific beats and tempos that a composer uses to break music into digestible sections. A friend explained to me that music is usually in 4 or 8 measures, so a 5th measure is a link that helps the music flow. Another definition of measure is a plan or course of action taken to achieve a particular purpose. The number 5 is referred to as the number of humanity, a symbol of balance, representing the need to maintain balance between the spiritual and the material. In numerology, Angel 5 symbolizes courage and important life lessons. The spiritual number 5 is a symbol of God's grace and kindness. So by God's grace, through my life lessons, there is a greater plan for fulfilling an abundant life, expanding with the flow toward what I was created to be. And then later I was given what those 5 expansions would be. Awareness, trust, will, safe, and incarnation. And incarnation is, and I wrote paragraphs under each of those topics. Incarnation is to re-enter my body. I have often asked, why can I remember anything before the age of 5? What did I give up being? And then later, when the 3 years of abuse happened, I again let go of the capacity to remember. My brother once mentioned that they had come to my house for an overnight and they played in the creek and had so much fun. And I do not recall any of that. I need to recover my lost self and give myself a chance to follow my true purpose and passion. How do I move through my time of measures? And then I go on in the chapter.
Well, maybe you could read the paragraph that goes with each of those measures that you're given.
Okay, well,
Feels important to build the brain cells for that.
That one was the paragraph with incarnation. Awareness, consciousness, and realization to remember the loss of being and return to love. I felt snatched from love and experienced deep sorrow and terror. I need to be aware of my breathing. The name of God is the breath. The breath will dissolve the veil between the unconscious and the subconscious, and it's safe to go there. And then I used a quote from a movie that I watched called Black Cake. And the quote was, "Love brings the light that will guide you out of your darkest moments." And then the second one, trust. Trust God, trust Michael, and trust myself for starters. I felt betrayed by those who were supposed to care for me and nurture me. So I locked feelings away inside and they festered. If no one else, I can trust God and Rukha, spirit, and then allow that trust to grow to include myself and others. The next one was will instead of willpower. 5 things that will does: frame, set, select for immediate attention, maintain, and cancel goals. The 5 smooth stones to destroy the Goliath: choice, will, intuition, imagination, and enlightened perception. This comes from the work of Dr. Michael Ryce, whyagain.org. Next one is safe. To remember mentally and emotionally and remember in my body, and to move from surviving to living, thriving, and dreaming. This is a big one and will take facing every atrocity I took on about myself, including those I have forgotten or pretend did not happen. Danger and threat happened repeatedly, and my freeze stayed turned on. It is safe to let go of the coping strategies and to feel what is real. It's safe to sleep peacefully again. And then I read incarnation.
Cool. And that was powerful energy time.
Mm-hmm.
And Susan, I wonder, since you did the Quantum StillPoint just a few months ago, and you were sharing a little bit of that with me, what your transition has looked like, arriving, getting ready for the next level of it.
Thanks, Andrea. When I saw Michael, when I did the first still point, very much in guarded, extremely guarded, and people would say there was an intimidation energy around me, but I didn't know it, or it was pointed out, but I wasn't conscious of it. But then that intimidation, it would say, is the shield of guardedness. So that started to move somewhat. And also that was about not being safe in the world and not trusting in God. I thought life was hostile, that I had to protect, because the evidence as a child was that it's a hostile world. And, you know, not trusting in the mother, father, God. Like I couldn't trust in my parents, who I perceived as God. So, and that it wasn't healthy and it wasn't safe or trusting, like, and got violated in many ways. So it was the unraveling of that. And I see it now as a rose unfurling. And really, Michael said he has an image from way back at Heartland where the rose is unfurling and then it becomes a heart. That's really what I feel like I'm going through. I'm becoming the radiance that I always was, but didn't know it through the thinking mind. And I can say that I feel I can rest into life, into Rukha now. And the journey with the three of us here, the triad, one of our journeys over this intensive will be to letting go of a lot of our victim nature around the masculine. I can really feel that, the perception I had, what the masculine had done. So, and then I said to Michael in the still point today, I want to see the truth of the masculine. And so, and also then Michael said, well, what about, we'll start with the truth of yourself. And that's, so that is starting to come, because the image and the belief I had about myself and the perception I had about myself was completely distorted from a non-being mind and taking on my power person, that I was worthless, all the things many of you have seen me, like codependency, as I've been working through my stuff. So I'm really excited. All the mirrors, and with the three, that two are here with me, they're my mirrors, and all of you are my mirrors. I'm excited to meet everybody at the intensive and to see what God will reveal for me to come into my divine nature. So yeah, it's just magnificent.
Sweet. Next level. Well, I'm excited. So how's everybody doing? Anyone have any thoughts, questions, answers, ideas? Anything on your mind? Well, I'm gonna throw into the mix, you know, this idea that I've been talking about, and it's been gelling on a deeper and deeper level. I've been working to teach my mind how to talk about the experience of realizing that there is no life in the body, and that our focal point needs to be on that which animates the body. It's the animating force that carries the power into our forms, into the appearance of form, at least. And, you know, we've so much over the generations been taught to focus on the world and sensations. And it's given me a whole new perspective to realize that the focal point needs to be in our relationship with what? The breath and the alignment of our forms. And so it's coming home for me on a new experiential level that was never even part of my understanding previously. So I'm excited about that one.
I have a
And
question for
looking forward
Andrea.
to what happens as the breath unfolds. Go ahead, Kerry.
I have a question for Andrea. Have you ever tried combining breath work with meditation consciously? I know in breath work, we fall into meditation, but I'm wondering if even when sitting, I know the yogis, you know, have all kinds of Kriya techniques for breath. And I guess I'd like to hear your experience of the breath and meditation together.
That was a question for you, Andrea.
I actually didn't start breath work until a couple of years ago. Meditation was the way for me then. But what comes to mind is that meditation allowed me to find a state of regulation in my nervous system, in my light body, where the one thing that I learned from those years of my meditation practice was that when my nervous system is regulated by taking the space to let the thoughts, first of all, just think themselves with no attachment. You just let them think, let them do their own activity. That allowed my nervous system to settle. And the longer I could sit, it wasn't about time though. It was about dropping so deep into the eternal now moment where everything exists all at once. And so I think breath work, what I've learned from it so far, and even in my yogic training, I actually don't do a lot of breath work unless something of density is up for me. I've learned to use it. That because of that meditation practice, I know the roots. I have the wiring now for the roots to drop into the eternal moment as much as my nervous system is regulated. And then when I use the breath, it supports me to stay present as I process density. And I guess what I can relate that to is the carbon-based memory and the sensations that come with it are present. And so when I do breath work, I am able to drop into that meditative space without trying. But in your question, with your saying, using them both together, with all that explanation, yes, I do. But I feel like learning breath work and meditation as a practice on their own helps merge them together in a way that can have a fullness of experience. Because if a person is unable to be still, to allow what needs to process to come through, and to drop in enough into your own body, into your own heart space, and this now moment, I don't know how they would come together. But that's only my experience because of the way my meditation practice came about, and then breath work and yogic training. So maybe somebody else has a good answer for that.
I just wanted to add, interesting, that perfect what you said, because in breath work today, Michael just, of course, I went into the still point moments where there was no breath. And that's when the super processor was kicking in. Lots of activity was happening. And then Michael said, go to the deepest of your generations in the breath, follow it, like right to the beginning of time. Like he didn't say beginning of time, but what I was perceiving in that moment was allowing Rukha to breathe me right from its origin into this state of being. And in that there's energetic patterns that go along with it. And of course, this physiology is constricted. There's still elements, and in my breath work, I got to go to a potential lifetime where there was trauma, and which came forward, and it was clear how it was binding in the physiology, especially in my feet and my hips, and how my legs and that were bowed because the energy was so constricted. Satan was gripped there. So I feel as though the breath is actually the facilitation of the meditation practice. And we just come into union with the breath as Rukha becomes we become one with Rukha, which we are. The name of God is our inheritance. There's nowhere to go. Even now, I'm going into that state of just being breathed. Just allowing, and that is the conduit of the meditation. They're one and the same. But the breath is the facilitator, the carrier to take us to the meditation. I perceive it.
Yeah, that actually resonates in me, that because I had no training when I started to meditate the way I was. That came later. And what I do recall is my breath breathing me. But it wasn't the breath work that I've learned, which is activating. It was actually being so present in my own body that my breath was breathing me, and it was very smooth. And then when I would drop so deep into what the common language has been, this super processor, is that I actually would not be breathing. And when the breath would come back in, it was so small and shallow, it was barely even there. So that actually helps give language to what was
I can't wait
happening for me
tomorrow because she hasn't had a quantum still point yet. So
today.
I know it's right. She's going in. She's
Yes.
going in, everyone.
Right.
Right after. So I'm sure your language is going to really expand like
Oh.
that. Then just because you're going to have the direct experience of all that you know and you've experienced that you've done on your own. What Michael said, not having anyone in 50 years being able to articulate in language what he knows that had not done his work. So then now you're gonna, and then he gets to facilitate you through the process of which you're like, oh my God, of course I know. Oh my God, I'm home. Of course I know this. And they give language to it. So
Beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's interesting. I just found out just an hour ago what Andrea's practice was in meditation and how it tied into the still point. And the way I came to across the still point is I'd been trained in classic breath work, and I was in Atlanta, and I remember I was at a healing center, and I had just a bunch of stuff coming up, and I needed to breathe it, and there was nobody there to facilitate me. So I just laid down and started to breathe. And of course, in classic breath work, I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but if you stop breathing, you're given a jab in the ribs and you're told you're going unconscious, breathe, which for me was always a jar. And I didn't understand why, because I wasn't there long enough to really experience what was going on. But once I discovered going into the still point, and I became aware of it was like there was a sound in the background. It was like a tape recorder on high speed fast forward. And it was just like, if you can imagine, tape recorder just rocking along. And I kind of freaked. Well, ticker tape, or just if you put your tape recorder on high speed, it was just like, and I kind of freaked out a little bit. I said, wait a minute, what's going on here? Slow this down. And it slowed down. And it was, this is being changed to this being changed, this being released. It was just like, there was massive, and that's how you've heard me describe it, as high speed processing. And what I've realized since, with my physics background, is literally physiologically, it's going into a superconductor state. So there's no resistance left. There's no Satan left in tissue. Remember, Satan in Aramaic is the resistor. When you let go of that resistance, then things start to move. And I can remember so clearly. I'm laying there and I'm not breathing. It's like, I'm not breathing, but I'm supposed to be breathing. But this feels so good, and that's how I discovered still point. And I've had people do every kind of breath work you can imagine, Groff and all of those that have come and done still points. Well, I've already done all the breath work there is to do, and I've never had anybody that's met or run into or worked with the still point. So it's going to be interesting, because this will be the first time I'll get to facilitate you, Andrea, right after the show. So if everybody hold the space for us to add the still point process and the hands-on energy field work to what you've been doing, it'll be just really interesting to see what happens, especially, I suspect, physiology. In the ancient teachings, they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain. And that isn't a purple curtain in a church. That's a metaphor for the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. And that barrier is built with the breath, and it's opened with the breath. So it'll really be interesting to see what opens and what moves for you as we step into this session coming up. Very cool. Go for it.
So when was in the still point, and then what do you see when I go into the still point? What do you see as the one observing?
We're having to switch mute buttons back and forth there, so a little bit of a delay. So usually I can, when I'm working with someone and doing still point, when that happens, I can see exactly where in their body. I've come to really see that the so-called body, the energy system, is a biocomputer, and so you can see the tissue starting to jump and move where the work is being done. So it might be somebody working in their left foot, and it might be in the shoulder, and it might be in the jaw. It might, anywhere that trauma is stored, that when one goes into still point, that tissue will start to do a dance that if you tried to do it voluntarily, you couldn't do it. And so that's what happens when I'm watching someone do still point, when they actually go in. And then because most people aren't used to being aware from a soul level, they're only used to being aware from a mind level with normal stuff. They're like, well, but nothing happened. And you'll notice that each time you come out of a still point, just quietly, I offer the thought, be gently aware. Because if you're not aware from a soul level of what's going on, then that's why I think in classic breathing work, it's been called going unconscious, because unless you're conscious on a soul level, nothing happened. It was just a blank. But it's anything but a blank. It's like the core of where the work happens. So, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that idea. Kerry is also a trained breath worker.
Yeah, sure. I have some thoughts about that because I was trained in that methodology where you got poked in the ribs and told you were going unconscious. I still think there's a lot of value in that. I don't want to discount it because I've seen some incredible things happen in those breathwork sessions. And
For sure.
I also have this new level of awareness too. And it's interesting because I have not had the opportunity to assist others with breath work in the still point. I did a lot in the traditional breath work, yes, with facilitating others, but not with the still point. So I'm going to be on the lookout for that. And I do remember during my sessions with you on the still point, having parts of my body that would move, and some were subtle and some were not so subtle. So I also did a lot of body work with a woman who does constellations and cranial sacral and all this stuff. And she does this gentle body work. And she would notice movements of the body and ask. And so then we would ask the body what's going on. And I remember you did that in the still point as well.
Whoops, I had my mute button on. Yeah. Yeah, it's always boggled my mind. I mean, when I was in South Florida, and that was about 2 years after I first discovered and started to put in my practice still point breathing, I basically, for about 7 years, I worked 3 days a week with people. I'd start before people went to work. I'd start and do a first session at 7 in the morning, and then every hour and a half to 2 hours would do a still point breathing session. And so did that 3 days a week for 7 years. And it always boggled my mind when I watched where people were working and then how they could come back and describe what had happened and what was going on in that space. And it's out of that practice that I developed, recognizing that people were unconscious of what was going on. They weren't able to bring it back. The mind, once you go into that high-speed processing, it's like the mind is like a helpless child. It can't keep up with it. But if given just that gentle reminder, be gently aware, then people go, oh yeah, that's right, there was something going on. And it kind of gives them a hook to hang it on. And also, when I first discovered, with my naturopathic training, once I discovered the still point, I would notice that there would be certain things that you could do with the structure, with the energy field, that would enhance the still point. So from then on, and for 4 decades, every training that I did, I always had my eye out for what facilitates or enhances somebody getting to the still point. And that's basically what the energy field work is that we do in the intensive that we'll be doing this week, and which I don't know if I've told you ladies or not, but the hands-on energy field is not normally part of this intensive, but because of recent revelations, it's going to be part of it. And I will get that video to you, Kerry, as well, so that you'll
Thank you.
get a chance to refresh with it. But it'd be interesting to add that to it and just watch how. And if you've got your hands on someone doing one of the moves from the energy field work, and person goes into still point, you just stay right there. You don't even breathe loud enough for them to hear you.
Yeah,
Is what
I did it. I did
it
it
is.
one time with you when I did my first Y again down in Florida.
Right.
Yeah, we did the those points, energetic points. And what I have actually learned through my regular hatha yoga practice, as I was doing my teacher training and in the classes that I was teaching, is that people really are not aware of their bodies and the energy moving into it. And there's one yoga teacher, his name escapes me at the moment, who said that as you deepen your yoga practice, you begin to feel, as you sit in or stand in the pose, you begin to feel where the energy is flowing and where the energy is blocked. And that his teaching became the focus of my teaching. Because as I was teaching, I noticed people did not understand even where their arm was in a pose or what. They weren't in their body.
Unconscious.
And yeah, so to do that, I moved from doing any kind of Ashtanga or fast moving stuff into the slower hatha, which allows a person to experience how and where the energy is moving in their bodies and to actually feel that.
Right.
So that's always been really important to me. And I found, some people were like, oh, you don't move fast enough in the class for me. I like, the really fast stuff. And I said, well, okay, perhaps you need another teacher, because that's not, I'm not that teacher, I'm a
What they
different.
were saying is, I don't want to feel what's going on in my body. Part of why I'm doing this is to escape it. And I mean, you look at our whole culture. The whole thing is built for escape. You go into a restaurant, there are 5 TVs playing, there are 2 bands playing, and alcohol and caffeine and sugar. Somebody smoking pot over in the corner. I mean, the whole culture is built for unconsciousness. so
Right.
for people to start to really become aware of and touch into, and in many cases it can be pretty traumatic, because for most people there's a whole lot of generational trauma in there that's never been addressed or dealt with, and or a whole lot of personal trauma that's never been addressed or dealt with. And so that the breath is not only the source of intelligence that animates this piece of dust we call our bodies, but it also is the force that brings healing to it.
So focusing on movement and breath, I had doing sun salutations once, and I was doing a certain thing over and over, having people breathe a certain way and feeling the energy. This woman told me after class, she said, oh, this is so boring, Kerry. I can't. I'm like, okay, I understand.
Yeah. Don't make me look.
I mean,
Don't
there
make
was a
me
lot of
tell you
movement
what's inside of
there.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the state of the culture. Cool. Well, any of you ladies have anything else to share?
Online, but say hi to everybody. No.
Anita's in quiet time.
I like how you're bringing up yoga, and what really I value about it is that when I'm saying like your nervous system regulated, I'm speaking, the way I've learned about my own nervous system is when I can see into my body, my nervous system is like a tuning fork, and I can see nodal points on it where trauma is held. And when something is resonating it, thoughts is what I believe are resonating it, then it becomes active in my system. And if there is a lot active in my system, I love vinyasas and have loved it in the past, to be able to move that energy out of my body. And then when they would go into savasana, I could meditate for a very long time after, if I had gone into the class very dysregulated. So I appreciate that there is titration that needs to happen for people depending on how much unprocessed trauma that they're walking around with. Like, I love to go to a float center, the sensory deprivation tanks. I have the best meditations. That's actually when the super processor still comes online for me. And there's more to be revealed around that, because I feel like Michael is helping me understand why I don't go into meditation the way I used to. But I invited my mother to come into the float tank, not the same one as me, but to come and float. And she said, "Oh my God, kill me now." She actually said, "There is no way I would kill myself to spend an hour and a half with myself in a float tank." And I thought, it helped me realize that people at different stages, if they had conscious guidance, that a lot of movement, running, like I used to run half marathons or I'd run at least 2 to 3 hours a day because I couldn't deal with what was up in me. And that helped me move the energy enough to be able to sit in my body. So there's like titrational levels for people to go into to be able to walk through a journey back to stillness, or the still point that you're speaking about. So I have a big value for what yoga does have to offer.
Yeah, and I think also, that it's also different body types, whether you're Kapha, Vata, or Pitta, need different things. And I think often the Pitta type, the fire, the really energetic type, they need some of the more Kapha poses to bring them down and ground them, as well as the Vata needs that. And I agree with you that there are places where some of that energy needs to be released before you can actually go inside. Yeah. So, and that's one thing that I learned as a yoga teacher, is that there is no one way to do yoga. There is no right or wrong, or this teacher is not doing this for me. It's like each teacher offers something, and you find the teacher that you need. Yeah. You're on mute there, but I kind of get what's going on.
Well, the other thing is going to be that you're going to get the tools. You'll see, added to what you've already done, how those places where that stuff's stored, you're just going to start emptying it from your structure. So there'll be nothing left in you to dysregulate you. And that's like the next level of everything. That, you know, we are not designed as human beings to have dysregulating energy. And if you go back into the ancient language, which is often rejected in this culture, what they're saying is, what they said was, we're not designed for sin. And sin just is an archery term in Aramaic, which simply means off the mark. An energy that's off the mark creates dysregulation. It's just a different language for it. But, you know, literally, breathing is the forgiveness of sins. That's how forgiveness happens. Is when you bring the breath into the place where there's an energy that doesn't belong in any part of the field, then the breath literally unwinds that energy and removes it. And that's what actual forgiveness is. That stuff just never belonged. That's all. It doesn't have a place in human form.
Clear now, that how the breath is the animator.
Say it again.
How breath is the animator of this dust, this carbon-based 666. And in the breath, there is no sin. And then as we hold that, as we hold that and allow this physiology to be breathed, something about love, life, love flowing through the cell.
Exactly. And removing the energies that didn't belong is what opens the blocks and the pathways to incarnation, joy, aliveness, everything we're designed for. So I'm excited on a new level. Hope you ladies are too. I'm rock and roll. So anyone else, any other thoughts? Or Susan, we've only got 2 minutes, but we can always go a couple minute or 2 or 3 over if your question fits in that time frame. Hello, Susan.
I finally found my mute button.
Okay.
No, mine's just a different thing. And I'm wishing you well, Andrea. And I'm in awe of the level of discussion. I'm so in a different ballpark. I'm glad to be on the show. I feel like a kindergartner. You guys are in college. All right.
So Susan, I'll invite you to look at how your power person is talking through you, and it sounds like your voice, but it's not your voice at all. This is your power person talking.
Okay. Well,
Because you've done some pretty powerful and advanced work. All I need to do to remind you of what you've done is bring into awareness Luke.
Luke.
Are you breathing on that one?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Michael. He's like a miraculous boy. Yeah.
Well, he had a miraculous influence that touched him pretty deeply. So I'd be patting yourself on the back if I were you.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I just woke up in the night and trotted a wake up sheet downstairs to the basement, and he did it, and that was it. I was a conduit.
Yeah, that's all we all are. So pretty awesome.
So, well, this is great. And since there's going to be more breathing and workshopping, this is going to be a very rich time. And so if you're on next week, that would be great. If you can't be, I get it. And hoping to hear the reports after then. But good luck, Andrea. Really, I'll be thinking of you.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Have a blessed day. Best year yet of your